Welcome to the Daily Grind. My name's Mark. I got Luke with me. What's up, man?
Not much, brother. I'm still riding that high from winning the other night, man. I just feel so good. It's one win, and I don't care.
It's a great time to be a Memphian. I just got to say that the Tigers played last night. Carlos on the YouTube stream just commented, "Go Tigers, go! Go Tigers, go, baby!" I know this is a Grizzlies show. I went to the University of Memphis, graduated there. I met my wife there at a fraternity party. She graduated there. We've been married 15 years this year. Been together for 19. Almost my whole adult life. Well, actually, not almost. My entire adult life, I've been with this woman, my best friend. She doesn't watch the show, but if she did, she'd be excited. But the Memphis is special to my heart. I know it's special to a lot of people's hearts. So shout out to the Tigers last night getting their first dub. Shout out to the city of Memphis. It's a great time to be a Memphian.
Hell yeah.
The season is upon us of basketball with and Daniel said, "Let's go, Duke." Come on, man. Get out of here.
Shut your mouth, Daniel. Get out of here.
The time is upon us, though, where college basketball, even Duke, and the NBA basketball is getting into being full swing, and football is on almost every single day until Thanksgiving seems like. And so I think I saw someone tweet that there's not a day now that doesn't have football until Thanksgiving, which it's hard to believe. I don't know. Trust but verify, people. But the time for sports fans is ripe. It's been amazing. And Bluff City Media just getting full swing. So shout out to us. Got a great show for you guys today. We're talking about on the rundown. How do we end up 1-6? That's going to be a big conversation piece for us. Talking about the next 18 games. And then our last segment of the show, our Monday mailbag, kind of not on Mondays. It's a new segment we're going to start up here at the show where we take your questions and answer them every single week. And so make sure you look for that. And we will do those on a specific day of the week. We'll try to get it out on Mondays. Although if it's a big win like Sunday night, we can't guarantee it.
Yeah.
Can't guarantee because we'll just be excited. So
yeah.
Great show today. All right, let's start with our first topic. How do we end up at 1-6 for this Grizzlies team? I think it's important to understand how we got here. And this was kind of my this was my topic on the rundown yesterday when we were talking about what should we. First of all, actually, before I get started, coffee today. Apple cider donut, by the way, is the coffee. Yeah, it's from a coffee company called Bones Coffee Company. I order from them all the time. It's a great company. They have all kinds of weird flavors. Apple cider donut. It's delicious, by the way.
Sounds delicious. I'm just rocking classic Cafe Bustelo in a Miss Claus glass.
I got just a plain glass.
That's that. That's classy.
That's an IKEA cup.
I love IKEA.
For those of you who don't know, I do a lot of I work in video production and we do a lot of props sometimes. So my house is full with like single cups and single plates and stuff from like food shoots and stuff like that around the house. So
hell yeah.
That's what this is. It's the only one we have that's like this. So I digress. Let's get back to the show. How do we end up in Memphis 1-6? I think that obviously we've talked about on the show before that this team is playing non-NBA players. Obviously, the first few games. I think that's the most straightforward answer is how do we end up here is they are forced to play. And I say forced because that is the correct assumption. They're forced to play non-NBA players in NBA minutes. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. I mean, it's guys that might end up being quality NBA players in 5 years, but that doesn't help us now at all.
Correct. And I think that's really important to understand that like someone like even like a David Roddy, who I think has real NBA potential, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's being forced to play minutes that I just don't think he's ready for. I think he would have been good on like the back half of the rotation, spot minutes in the rotation sometimes. But especially early on in this short season, he's been forced to play huge minutes, which is I think is unfortunate for him, even on his development, because I think that it's important to understand that he's a guy that is good, but it still takes a long time to get to where you're going. The other thing I think is important to understand is that, the Grizzlies front office did not have, they weren't planning on the front court being like this, right? I think I've seen a lot of people be very angry with the front office for not having a backup plan for Steven Adams. But but the problem is, and if you look at the what the Grizzlies, the front office did in the summer, the front office looking towards the season during the summer in June, July, they have Santi Aldama, Jaren Jackson Jr., Xavier Tillman, and Steven Adams.
Yeah,
that's a solid front court. To which you're missing Brandon Clark, but that's like, oh, that's going to be Xavier Tillman's going to maybe try to fill those minutes, right?
Yes.
So if you're the Grizzlies front office, there's absolutely no reason to go out and get a backup big or a backup to Steven Adams. None of that's true. Now, you can discuss and be mad about how you think they handled the Steven Adams injury to your blue in the face. That whatever you want to do. Yeah, I mean, that's a legitimate conversation, but one I don't think this is part of, right?
Nope.
I think those are two different things. Fast forward to the week before the season, a few days before the season, and in Santi's case, literally the day before the season starts.
Day before.
Santi goes down, Steven Adams goes down for the year. So what you thought was a front court rotation of Jaren, Xavier, Santi, and Steve-O is now Jaren and X, and that's it. And now you have to try to pay people like Kenny Lofton. Now you got to go out and try to get someone like Bismack Biyombo, who, to be clear, wouldn't even be able to get if it's not for Ja's suspension.
Yes.
So even if Ja's not suspended, you're in even probably not a worse situation, but you're in a situation where you have to make more decisions based on your roster, based on the guys available. So I think that's one of the biggest, important to note is like how we end up here is health. I mean, and I know that's it feels like a cop out because people don't like that answer, right? I think people expect more from that. And I think people think that's a cop out answer, but it's not.
No,
it's just
I think it's the truth. I think the answer, I think it's just a two-hander. It's like, it's health. And then it's the front office's hubris to rely on these young guys. I mean, that conversation has been had over and over and over about like letting certain guys walk and relying on the youth movement, like that's been discussed. But I think that they were feeling pretty good about the fact they had drafted Dez and X and Z and Santi. And I think they just felt good and felt like one of these guys would hit, and they just didn't, and so I think the resiliency there to like go to the youth, all these young wings and hope one of them pans out. It just made it tough when injuries hit, like you said.
And that's the other, I think that's the other side of the coin on this is that you have guys, and I think it's people don't want to hear this, but they gave up two first round picks and a second for Jake LaRavia. And I mean, that hurts. They gave up the 22nd and the 29th pick in that draft, and a future second for Jake LaRavia. And so they gave up a lot of assets. To be clear, they gave up a lot of assets to get players like Jake LaRavia and David Roddy. They didn't give up anything for Kenny Lofton, but they filled it with a roster spot. So that's the other thing. That's the other side of this coin is health is one side. The other side is where you spent so many years hating on draft picks. You had a really bad 2 years, bad stretch. Of not hating anything. And I've said this before, like that's okay. The draft is really hard to do. And I don't hold them. I'm not mad at who they picked. I'm mad they like we've talked about this before. I'm mad they went up and got them.
Yes.
Right. Like Jake LaRavia was not going anywhere. No one was going like, oh my, he got drafted, but like the guys are trying to go to get, they're not going anywhere. Right. And giving up that many assets to get him, I think, whatever. Like they gave a Walker Kessler to get Jake LaRavia, and like he's a real NBA player.
He's a backup, a solid big that we could have used in this situation. Like,
and that's the other side of it is banking on young players when they aren't ready, or not even already, but they're not good. They're just not good. I said David Roddy is the only guy out of those selection of players last few years that I think is going to be an NBA player. When I say going to be an NBA, I mean, I think he's going to be a role player, an average role player, maybe below average role player, maybe a journeyman. Like that's his MO.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, too, you're asking these kids to like adjust to a speed that Wake Forest, where did Roddy go? Colorado State. Like
Yeah.
if you think that's anywhere close to the competition and
Right.
the speed of which the game's played here, like you're out of your mind. Like it's two totally different games. And then
Yeah,
they're a year and a half into this.
And that's okay too, right? Like that's
Yeah.
all these things are okay. I don't want to be we're sounding saying these are bad things. Like those guys, they gave it, they gave up Dylan Brooks. No, they gave up these are the guys they let go D'Anthony Melton, Kyle Anderson that year. They let go Dylan Brooks and Tyus Jones. And they replaced them with guys that aren't NBA players. So that's ultimately the other issue on this is that they invested in youth. They thought that was going to be the path because they had, been successful before, and they missed, and that's okay. But that's how we now find ourselves when you have health issues, like we talked about just a minute ago. When you have health issues, now that's how you find yourself losing a bunch of fucking games because the guys who you have on the back end of your roster, instead of the next guy up being D'Anthony Melton and maybe even John Conchar, they're trying to force the issue with Kenny Lofton Jr., David Roddy, or Slow-Mo, right? Instead of the next man up being Slow-Mo or D'Anthony Melton, who are actual NBA players.
Yes, starters sometimes on some nights.
And to be clear, like the Slow-Mo and Dylan Brooks, like those guys all got moved, and I'm not really blaming them for that, right? Because they were in situations where they couldn't afford them, like Dylan Brooks. Like if you wanted to keep Dylan Brooks, I mean, there's no way they're keeping Dylan and Des instead of going out and getting free agents or making trades with their assets they had for players who are already in the league, who actually I think a lot of people wanted them to do, including myself. They banked on youth on the draft. And I said that the year they drafted 2 years ago when they drafted Jake and David Roddy and, had all these things and they elected Anthony Melton in college ago is that and I think a lot of people said is like, hey, this is weird because you're letting real role players go and you're replacing them with youth. And I'm not so sure that's going to work. And it didn't. It's blown up in their face. And so
I think you keep one of those dudes, like one of those four between, and like,
it's just David Roddy. Like it's David Roddy.
Yep. And I mean, even if you just out of the four guys we let go and the four guys we brought in, if you just let three of them go and keep one of them, I think we're singing a different tune. Like I think that if we just have one of those guys, like if Slow-Mo was still here, like that changes things.
Even if you don't have Slow-Mo, you have someone else that is comparable.
NBA player.
Right? An NBA player. And again, I think that's the ultimate issue of how we got here is, yes, health has been a huge factor. That's one side of the token, right? The other side of the token is when health becomes a huge factor, who fills those spots on the back end of your rotation? Who's the guy that can step up and play a week and not have a huge drop off? And unfortunately, they don't have anybody like that. They've had a huge drop off. They've gone from playing regular players or G leaguers. We talked about this yesterday. That for the first week and a half, they played, three, maybe have three legitimate NBA starters on that team. Not maybe. There's definitely three, maybe four, depending on what you think about X.
It's been two-way guys. The two-way guys are
depending on what you think about Zaire, right? Depending on what you think about Zaire. Maybe he's a fourth starter if you think he's a starter in the NBA. Yeah. But that's it. That's it. So I think, just seeing a lot, I think that's important for us to just talk about on today's show, just because depending, where we're at, and I see a lot of people blaming, the front office for a lot of things, and they have blame to take.
Yeah.
But not all of it. And some of it's just bad luck. And I know that's like people don't want to hear that, but that's just the reality. Some of it's just bad luck.
Shit happens.
Shit happens. That should be good. That should be the Grizzlies' new marketing slogan is shit happens.
Shit happens.
All right, man. Let's take a quick break. We'll be come back on the other side. We're talking the next 18 games, where the Grizzlies go from here.